to come in.
And then we'll do a little switch of chairs. Good to mention as well that from now on we will record the session so that we can share it as well. If you do not feel comfortable with that, then please unmute and also stop sharing your video so that in any case, the focus will be on the presenter. But welcome, and I will see you all back in a little while.
Thank you. Helen, a big welcome here.
Thank you.
Very good that you have volunteered to give us a presentation. We are very happy about that. But we should also welcome somebody who is currently some 10,000 kilometers away, and that is Michi. Can we see Michi also on the screen? I cannot see that, but at least Michi, a big welcome to you as well. And thanks to you as well for being part in this session and also being available to share your views later on in this session. Yeah, it's a big thing for Plan and Femnet and the She Leads Alliance to be in the limelight here to tell us about the work. So yeah, it's commendable. And Helen, I would like to give you the floor to you to present the case of She Leads to you all. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gerrit, and also thank you, Gigi and Partos for welcoming us today. Let me just start. We're on a tight time schedule, I've been told. So my name is Helen Everts, and I work as a manager strategic partnerships at Plan International here in the Netherlands. And I'm currently taking over for the consortium coordinator of She Leads, Zoe Nussi. Maybe she's online, I don't know. And that is also a disclaimer that I would like to make, that I am a relative outsider of She Leads Consortium. So if any of my colleagues from the core group and the steering group are online, if I'm telling things that are not correct, please let our facilitators know in the chat, and they will alert me. Let me start. The next slide, please. I would like to briefly introduce you to She Leads, what we're doing, and then take you through some of the experience that we've had in the past year, working our way around and through power imbalances. And I would like to do so based on 3 examples: our structure of country networks, we have a global girls and young women advisory board, and then finally a few words on how we address power imbalances at the consortium level between consortium members. And I won't be very long, but it's nice to take you through some of the things that we actually do, some of the challenges we meet, some of the things that we're proud of. I won't be ticking the boxes for each and every example, but that's the idea. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, She Leads. I think, Gerrit, you mentioned already, we're an initiative of 4 organizations. Plan International Netherlands is the lead organization. Then we have Defense for Children, ECPAT, from the Netherlands, Terre Netherlands also, and all 3 are part of bigger networks. And then we have Femnet, based in Nairobi. Of course, we operate under the framework of Power of Voices of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who are also a strategic partner in our program. Next slide, please. Yes, our vision. It's all about a society where the perspectives and voices of girls and young women are included and are reflected in laws and policies and social norms and practices. We can move to the next slide. And the next slide, please. I can tell. Oh yes, there it is. This is more about our program. We have 3 dimensions: the socio-cultural dimension, and we're looking also at the civil society dimension, and then there is the 3rd one, which is about political institutions. And the next slide. In practical terms, what we do, We fund and we support actions and advocacy of girls and young women organizations and feminist groups. We collect data and we do research to feed our advocacy, and our advocacy takes place through media as well as in more direct and indirect ways of influencing. We link, we learn, and I think it was mentioned in the Miro. We don't see learning as a one-way transfer of knowledge. We think of it as a mutual capacity strengthening. Every organization has something to teach and has something to learn as well. And next slide, please. Oh yeah, we work in 9 countries in Africa and in the Middle East, and we're also active at regional levels, also in the Middle East, Pan-African regional level, and globally. And now on to, well, the way we work, how we work. It was very interesting to hear that, I think it was Tropenbos who mentioned it, that we realized that if we want to make those changes happen, we're not going to get there with a nice vision and a theory of change and a work plan, but we decided that we'd start with agreeing on shared principles. And I'm not going to read them out loud. Oh, can we move to the next slide? Yes, and the next one, please. Yeah, those are our shared principles. I'm not going to read them out, but a few of them are making central the voices of girls and young women. It's about self-care and collective well-being, about creating an equal partnerships, and about each partner having its own unique contribution to make, inclusiveness. It's not a benchmark, but it's a guideline that helps us to ensure that we practice what we preach. And it helps us to reflect on all those decisions and all those choices that we make on a daily basis. And because we're so many people, so many organizations, so many contexts, we need something to help us navigate. The next slide, please. Yes, and now what do we actually do, and how do we navigate those power imbalances? From those principles and a power analysis that we did in the beginning of our program, we decided we needed to have decision making as close as possible to those organizations and those groups where we actually want to make our impact and where we want to make the changes. So what we decided is we'd have a structure of country networks for joint and decentralized decision making, also learning from past experiences, the importance of coordination at those levels. We made a very bold decision for our organizations to have dedicated coordinators, independent coordinators, and not just coordinators from the organizations that are already in there, but to select and to find young feminists, young women to coordinate the networks in the countries where we work. And then, of course, if it's not budgeted, it's not going to happen. So we also decided that they should have a joint budget. That's the joint budget. So every network should have a little budget for joint activities, and that is apart from the budget for the programming work. So how did that work out? What did we do? What did we plan? We can move to the next slide. Thank you. We started off developing our consortium, our program as a consortium, basically. Each and every consortium member reached out and engaged with their own affiliated organizations in the countries where the program was going to be implemented. And we then together facilitated the development of the first work plans. After that, we divided tasks, and we decided that we should share the coordination. So every consortium organization was going to take the coordinating tasks for one or more networks. And from that moment on, it became very important to make sure that communication was always clear, there was no misunderstandings, that decisions and actions were always followed up, so that we can support as a consortium those coordinating organizations. There is this thing in my image. Maybe somebody can click the got it button so I can see the whole slide.
That's for Aimee, Rosine, or Gigi. We still have the got it for the host, for the recording in our screen. Can you take it away?
Hey, I can do it myself.
We can. Oh,
good.
Yeah. Please,
Yes. Okay. Let me continue. This was especially also when we decided to start hiring those and selecting those young feminists, our coordinators. We are a consortium, but we are also autonomous organization, and HR is typically one area where organizations have their own policies and their own practices. So we went from a jointly developed terms of reference, and then every organization continued to elaborate that into a job description, and also the recruitment and the actual selection were done through the coordinating organizations. And I forgot to mention that the networks, of course, in our case, they are not legal entities, which means that those coordinators had to be hosted by the coordinating organization. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, the challenges and the responses. I only have 15 minutes, so I don't know how many challenges you want, but there are many. We did foresee, we expected, and we feared that our young feminist coordinators would meet with issues related to ageism, to gender, and they would be working in a very complex environment with network dynamics, with power differences. We also immediately discovered that there were considerable differences in salaries and remuneration. Well, between the INGO offices of Plan and Terre on the one hand side, and the smaller NGOs affiliated with the Femnet and with Defense for Children ECPAT. So a coordinator in one country could make a bigger salary than the director of an organization that she was supposed to be coordinating. Also, coordinators in different countries working for the same consortium would have different salaries. Apart from the whole power dynamics that brings with it, we just felt that there was an aspect of unfairness with it. Then another challenge, bureaucracy, financial administration. I'm sure it's familiar to all of you working in partnerships and networks. In our case, this is especially relevant when we talk about the joint budget, but it's also relevant when we talk about funding and resourcing informal groups and groups of girls and young women. For some organizations who are specialized in those kinds of fundings, it may not be an issue, but I'm sure that those organizations have other bureaucracy issues. But in our case, those are issues that really take time. And then there is conflicting interests within and across organizations. It's at all levels. For example, when I meet with colleagues from the finance department, who are, of course, mainly focused on financial accountability, but it's also at more national levels and even at the consortium level, where we work together, but we are also competing for funding, for resources, but also for a place at the table sometimes. And then the changing roles, I think it was also already mentioned in the Miro. Some of the work that is now being done in the networks used to be done by consortium organizations, and it's not so. It is sometimes very vague, like, oh, maybe in 10 years' time our organization will have changed, but it's already there on a very day-to-day basis that people see their jobs are changing, and in some cases it brings discomfort. And if we continue the slides, we see some of the responses that we developed. In some cases, that was a very deliberate plan and design, like the peer support initiative for our network coordinators, where they come together. That is not an instruction space. It is a space where we facilitate them to exchange and to share and to learn from each other. Although there is, of course, also support and facility support from our side. But sometimes it's also about, okay, so what are we actually doing? It's about reflecting and then realizing that you are actually doing a lot of work that has to do with exchanging, connecting people within our organizations, recognizing that things are not always easy, and also about caring for each other. And well, self-care is one of our principles. In this case, also our principles are always helpful, because we keep looking back at them and see, oh, what are we actually doing? So engaging, connecting is one way of dealing with conflicting interests. And sometimes it's also about, you know, finding where is my mandate. Sometimes it's easier if somebody's manager tells them that things should be done differently from now on, or in this case, than to convince somebody yourself. We can move on, I guess. Yes. So we find that we're all personal leaders in our own space and time. The second example is our Girls and Young Women Board. I will speed up from now on because I'm already approaching my time limit. This is something we're very, very proud of. We're also proud of, I would certainly say, a success, that the fact that we have these 10 young women coordinators actually coordinating those networks in our 9 countries. But the Global Girls and Young Women Advisory Board is also something that gives us a lot of energy. We are still dealing with a lot of questions. How do we really make that meaningful? How much advice are we willing and able to take? And what does it do to our board and to ourselves if we put an advice, we ask for an advice and we put it aside? Safeguarding is also a very big concern. Concern is something that requires our attention at all times. How do we keep this a safe space for the girls and young women in the board? And the next slide is where we met for the first time with our board right before Christmas. And well, it is that we have only this short time, but I could go on for like till 5 o'clock with all these beautiful examples of how we've already exchanged with our board members. There is one final example on the next slide that I would like to share with you, and that is about power inequalities at the more consortium level. Again, from our principles and our power analysis, we came up with a governance structure that is very much aimed at joint decision making and aimed at doing things together. So the focus of the part where we talk about equal partnerships is very much on everybody doing the same things and everybody contributing also in the same way. And we've recently, well, we have in principle annual reflections on how we are doing in terms of dealing with the power inequalities. We haven't had that reflection yet, but I'm taking a bit of an advance. We did discuss among ourselves, of course, before we had this presentation. But I think we're on a path of discussing among ourselves. So how do we make sure that we are all happy with the level of influence in the decision making? And it should be, it's not, sharing power is not about transferring the power and so, okay, good luck with it. It should be relevant and it should be feasible also for all the partners who are involved. So that is some of the experiences that we've had so far. It's very short, and I could you know, so much to share and to talk about, but I think we'll have to leave it at this for now.
Thank you very much, Helen. It's we can see your enthusiasm when you talk about the program. You're into it, but you have really taken us along what the program is, and some 3 major points that have been taken on in this presentation, and those major points will also be taken on in the breakout sessions later. But we have with us Mishi Singano, and I would like to invite Mishi to share some of her views and also experiences on this program, because it's an alliance. We want to work together, but also we want to experience shift of power in the alliance. And Mishi, very, very much welcome again to this session. We are very glad to have you here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. May I ask you a first general question? How do you experience the shift of power approaches in this partnership? Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Thank you. Yes, I think for me, shifting the power is a journey that I'm really, really proud to be part of. I don't think it's an event or it's a phenomenon, and equally don't think that it will end and it will have an expired date or an end date. So we are in this constant journey where we collectively and consistently and deliberately check our own privilege, our positioning and power that we grab in specific situation or historically. And I think what we are doing in Shield is being that intentional to be in this journey with every partner that has been involved.
So it's a journey. It's not a one-off thing. It's really a journey. I understand. Yeah, yeah. Could you mention one or two things that happened which were most relevant for you, which inspired you probably, or of which you thought, hey, this is really shifting power in our consortium?
So a lot has happened. I think Helen has shared from the structure and being intentional on how we design our structure. And most of us, we have been involved from the designing stage. So those conversations on what it is to design this project from the content point of view, but also from the structure, from the decision, from the compromises that we had to make in negotiation, and seeing that intention and willingness for everyone to listen, not to impose, has really been a life-changing. And specifically, for example, for us as Femnet, we do work with members, and often the not, program are designed and sort of imported to the country. And this was like us designing together. And of course, it comes with the challenges because we do know the requirement to design a proposal of that nature. So it has been a lot of heavy lifting, but it was worth it because that is also what it means to share power, is to take responsibility, not only privileges.
Thank you. Yeah, I recognize that. I think in a partnership, you have ambitions together, but you also have different interests. I mean, that's logical. And you've already said we had to make compromises now and then. That's the nature of any partnership, also when you apply shift power. Could you probably mention one thing where you had to compromise and how that worked? Or where another party in the consortium had to compromise?
So, for example, when we have the discussion, and I'm really, really proud to share Helen's excitement for our young women board. When we started having that idea, we thought possibly we could make that decision at country level, at the network level, so that we really brought that power back and just get one person. But then we realized that it can happen that every country choose the same person. So we need to, if we have to embrace diversity, then we need to have pool of candidates so that when we are making decision, we can be sure that there is a diversity, we have representation. So that while all of us were like, majority of us feel like, hey, we should do it at the country level, but then we really need to negotiate and see the value and what will come out of the process. And those who feel that, okay, possibly we can then as a compromise, we can ask country to send us their best 3 candidates. And then we can now do interview from the global level so that at least we can be sure that we are not just having a board which represents one fraction of girls, but we have that diversity.
Yeah, yeah, very practical solution you have found, very creative, thanks. It also shows, as much as you want to decentralize everything, sometimes there are overarching interests that you have as a partnership, and you need to find ways to deal with that. And you've done that in a very practical way. Thank you very much. Maybe another question, if you look at the presentation just being shared by Helen, I know you have prepared more or less together with the consortium, but still, are there 1 or 2 things that stand out for you that you really find very important to comment on?
Yes, I think, as I said, to me, the Young Women Board is my highlight of She Leads. And because it's of the nature and the vision that we have, but also taking that bold step of doing the quote unquote the impossible. And I feel if we said we want girls to lead, we should, first of all, us as a consortium, we need to practice what we preach. So we need to open that space so that they can lead. However, I do, as Helen say, I really understand that there will be a lot of challenges and constraints, because it's one thing to open up space, it's one thing to hand over power. I for one, I believe power needs to be shared rather than given to one, because it shouldn't be just, flipping the coin that you have power, then I'm taking your power and I give to another person. And in the spirit of sharing that power, there is a lot that needs to be invested. We need to invest a lot, especially on deconstructing what power is to begin with. Because as of now, if you're coming from Global South, power, how it symbolizes a rich man, a northerner, and often old person. So if you're telling a young Black southerner girl that you have power, and all they have in mind that power belong to this person. So there is a lot of socialization that needs to happen. And I think despite the structure that we have, our work on domain one, as Helen said, focusing on changing social norms, it really challenged those in this contract, deconstructing the social norms, so that girls, they can own and claim their power, and they can feel powerful themselves before power is being granted to them. And as well, what we are working on the political institution, we are not only wishing to see policies change, but also we want to see institutional culture changing, because if we operate in the space and pushing girls to be in a space where they can only talk for a minute as token just to tick the box, then we're not helping. So we designed the program and the structure really to live our aspiration and ambition that girls need to lead.
Thank you very much. And it shows there are so many dimensions to shift the power, so many levels also at which it needs to happen. And that's been shown very clear by your response. Thanks a lot. I have one more question. We also have in the room some people of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I think we should be happy that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also wants, it was very articulate in wanting to have shifting the power take place in the strategic partnerships. I think that's a very good initiative. And of course, we have these sessions also because how to do that, that's the big puzzle, and we can learn from that. So thanks to the ministry for putting it also on the agenda. If it were up to you from your position, would you have one advice to the ministry in their role towards the strategic partnerships?
Yeah, that was the easiest one. So to me, I think shifting the power should also mean shifting resources and being intentional of those shifting resources. So for example, if you give me 1 million euro, the activist in me and passionate of the work and the magnitude of the challenge that we face, chances are I will budget 900,000 of it to the program. And that will mean I'll have less resources to attract and maintain human resources that I need to manage the program. I will have had time to maintain and support the organization. So I think there needs to be deliberate efforts from the ministry to ensure that the organization, Southern organization, are supported to strengthen their organization to begin with. So not all money that goes to the Global South or to the Guild has to be tied to activities. Can we strengthen the organization? Can they strengthen their human resource capacity? Because we will need that. And we do, with the girls that we talked with organizations that we support, as much as, for example, plan as the lead, they have opened up space to make decisions. But if you have only one person, how many conversations can they engage? How many documents can they read and input? So you end up like you having, and we even disappoint our partner because we really want to co-lead, but you don't have the resources that you need to really provide or to put your best foot forward. So I think investing in organization strengthening should be a priority for the ministry as well.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think we concur, we need to be strong organizations in order to deliver quality in our work. So thanks for this comment. Yeah, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. You're not gone yet, because you will also stay with us and also get the feedback from the breakout rooms later, and have time to have an opportunity to also react on that. So for now, thanks a lot. But
Thank you.
We still have 5 minutes for question and answers from the public. So stay tuned. And Gigi, you may have selected 1 or 2 questions from the chat. Can you come in?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. I have seen some comments in the chat, but not yet any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or to put your questions in the chat. And that can be towards Helen or Mishi. I've seen some comments on a reaction to Mishi that the shift of resources as well is very important when we are talking about shifting power. That relates not only to the resources itself, but also the resourceful organizations that are able to grow organizationally as well in their capacities. But if there are any questions, share it with us. I see one coming in from Nico Smith. Perhaps, Nico, you can unmute and ask the question yourself, and also towards who you will be asking the question.
Yes, I hope you can see me. Actually, to both of you, if you care to answer, but one of you can take the lead. Yeah, the question is, as it is, how will the advisory boards continue after the strategic partnership will end? If it will end up, maybe it will continue forever, but when it ends, how will it continue? Is there already a mechanism or something built in to make sure that it will continue somehow?
Michi, unless you want to start, I can say what I know. Okay, it is one of the I think one of the questions that is already there on the table that we don't have a ready fit answer yet. What we did foresee is that this board will take terms of 2 years. So we'll actually be seeing 2 or 2.5 or 3 boards in the course of the program. So the idea of this particular group was not so much to keep it in existence as a sustainable organization. We do look at that with other organizations and initiatives and groups of girls and young women that we do support. Well, one of the things that we do is connect people also. We do want to strengthen organizations and the organizational level, but also it's a lot about connecting people, strengthening people and connecting them. It can be as simple as a WhatsApp group, for example, in our joint support initiative for the country network coordinators, where we see they are already interacting with each other, and that is growing. I don't know if you have something to add, Michi.
Yeah, I think a small one. I think it is important to note that the girls that are coming to or are now on the board, they are leaders on their own rights. Some of them, they've already founded organizations. Some of them were advocates in school. So they have already doing, because even our application process, and we've been awed and amazed by how much girls are doing with possibly little or no resources or platform that they have. So the recruitment process, we ask girls to tell their story, why are they good fit, and we have learned a lot. So we do, and it is because of that we ask them to advise us on how we can do better and how we can do our job better. So we really do feel that there is a lot that girls can do. And I think it is important as well to mention, as much as we had an idea of what the board really looked like, but we were intentional not to design a term of reference for them. So a lot of it will be defined by them as well. So we are really looking forward to learn. And as Ellen said, it's tricky because we invited them to advise us, and by this point, we need also to be open on how much you can take of that advice practically, but that's the journey that we are ready to, to be part of and to learn and to document as well.
Thank you, and very strong. They know very much themselves also how they want to go, of course. Thanks. In the interest of time, we have time, Gigi, for one very focused, quick question. Have you found one?
Yes, I did find a question. I will have to say there are so many interesting questions in the chat, so take your time to read through them. One specifically is asking, it's a very clear question actually, but it's about what kind of tool, method, process do you use to discuss and reflect on power relationships in the consortium? I would be interested in the answer to that question as well. So if anyone would like to answer that.
I think, Michi, you were part of that that process, right? Did we use the power analysis tool or did we use another one?
Yes, I think we did use, there was a bunch of tools that was being shared to help reflections at country level and for all of us to analyze the power dynamics within us. So when we were doing the work planning, we really had questions for countries network to reflect on the power dynamics as well. But also when we were doing the designing, we did have specific tools to reflect on power dynamics and share. And it was important for us to also look, we can share, I think, the actual name, but it was important for us to not look of who as power as just a one person has power in everything, but rather what's the different, power that are shared across the consortium. So for example, while Plan can have a lot of power in terms of their knowledge with how the ministry operate, but Femnet can have a lot of power in terms of their knowledge on how communities operate. So how do you share those power and how do you build complementarity and how do we, bridge the gap between those powers?
Thank you. Thanks for enlightening on that. It's time for a break and we want to keep it very brief. So let's take 3 minutes. I have to be very strict, very Dutch in that sense today. Just grab a cup of coffee or tea and then we'll be back in 3 minutes time. See you then.